Hello, I'm Adam Griffith, a research affiliate with the Conserve Research Group, and I'm here to introduce our new podcast series featuring cultural keystone species from across the United States. I'll be your host for the first podcast season, which explores the significance of native rivercane ecosystems in the southeastern United States and the importance to communities. In this series, you'll learn about how the species has been used by indigenous people for millennia in their daily lives. You'll learn how the plant contributes to cleaner water and provides important wildlife habitat. And in this first episode, you'll learn about the deep relationship Ryan Spring has with this plant and some basic biology with botanist Kathy Matthews. I began working with this amazing plant about 20 years ago. I love it, and I think you're going to love it too. So on behalf of everyone on the podcast team, we hope you'll stick around and listen to this episode, as well as the entire series on this plant and other cultural keystone species. This podcast is sponsored by the Rivercane Restoration Alliance and the Conserve Research Group at the University of Alabama. Thank you. I am here with guest Ryan Spring, guest one, episode one of the Rivercane podcast. Ryan, who are you and where are you?
My name's Ryan Spring. I'm a tribal member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I'm also a cultural research associate for the Historic Preservation Department. I live here in Calera, Oklahoma with my wife and my nieces, and I am here to talk about the amazing plant ecosystem Rivercane.
What is your relationship with Rivercane?
My relationship with Rivercane is unique for me. I didn't know a lot about Rivercane until I was doing my bachelor's degree in college. And then that's when I was introduced to Rivercane and how important Rivercane was to Choctaw culture as well as other southeastern cultures. And so when I came to work for the Historic Preservation Department, I interned in 2009 and 2010 and 2011 before I became a full-time employee. I held on to that, I guess, that budding relationship. You know, I knew that Rivercane was important, but I didn't know how important it was until I started getting, more involved with it. And so I think for me, I see myself now as a Rivercane steward, as a Rivercane ethnobotanist, but my goal is to make sure that my community has access to Rivercane, both for its ecological benefits, but also for its artistic benefits, but also to ensure that we respect Rivercane again, just as Rivercane respects us.
That's beautiful. What was the first time hearing about Rivercane? Were you in a college class? Do you remember the professor?
Yeah, so I was taking a college course. I was at the University of Arkansas, and I had taken some courses. I had recently switched my major to anthropology. I was biological engineering and then biology, and I realized I wasn't good at math, and I didn't like chemistry. I loved biology, though, and so I started kind of spreading and taking some other classes, but I realized I loved anthropology, so I switched to an anthropology major. But then I took every single class that we had on Native studies at the university, which wasn't a lot, back at that time. But there's a famous Cherokee national treasure, Shauna Kane, was teaching a course while she was doing her studies there. And so I hopped in this, it was like contemporary Native issues type course. And so I hopped in there, and it was an awesome class. There was all of these Native people, and Roger Kane was in the back filming the class. I remember one day Roger came, and he was talking about Rivercane a little bit and some of the work that they've been doing. And what I didn't realize is that my advisor at the time, he was doing work with Roger and Shauna. And, his background was in cultural anthropology, but in ethnobotany, medicinal anthropology, that sort of thing. And so he was working with them. So I would hear a lot about Roger and Shauna and some of his courses and some of his advisement, that sort of thing. And so interacting with Roger in this class was really cool because, I'd heard about him. And I don't know if it was part of the class or part of just, Native events that were going on, but there was a Cherokee artist that came out with a blowgun, and he shot blowgun and blowgun darts. And so that inspired me to go to Lowe's and get some half-inch PVC and some Nerf darts and snipe at people as they were walking into the dining hall from my dorm.
Nice.
Yeah. But I realized, this PVC is great, but I had the dream of creating my own blowgun one day. But to do that, I had to use Rivercane. And so that's where, listening to Roger talk and Shauna talk about basketry and Rivercane, I learned how important cane was. And then, so I kind of internalized that. So when I came to Choctaw Nation, I was already interning here at the time. And then, I started working here. And I was like, well, who here is working with Rivercane? And there wasn't anyone in the tribal government working with cane. But there was a need for cane. And so that's where that relationship really kind of culminated.
Unintended. Very nice. So that's awesome. We're actually going to hear from Roger Kane in the next episode. So listeners, you'll have to download that one as well. Ryan, what needs to change about civilization and culture to promote more Rivercane on the landscape?
A lot of it's understanding cane. I read these historic accounts of these Rivercane ecosystems dominating the Southeast, reading about how the Red River had 15 miles of nothing but Rivercane along the banks. To me, that's amazing. It's something that I would love to see. Won't see it in my lifetime, but hopefully by the efforts of my community, hopefully future generations will be able to see that again. There's a level of respect. From a traditional Choctaw standpoint, when God created Choctaw people, Choctaws were created as stewards. And so it's part of our responsibility for these ecosystems. And Rivercane needs us as much as we need it. And so to really promote Rivercane in today's society, part of it is to teach our people how to be stewards of it again, but also get our people access. And land access is very limited for Choctaw people through American imperialism. So that's where we have to work with different private owners, state owners, and federal owners, people that have these lands, identify cane that's on it or a cane that can grow on it. Work with them to start promoting not just this plant, but this ecosystem and learning more about this ecosystem. We know so little about the Rivercane ecosystem at this point in time, but I'm sure in the next decade we'll have lots of knowledge. But I think that's where we need to start, is on the grassroots level. It's going to take hearts and minds to change policy on a federal level with many of these things. Really what I see is there's certain agencies that help people do work on their land. And if we can promote the benefits of Rivercane to the people and to these agencies, then we can make real change right on the ground.
That's a beautiful vision. Brian, you reminded me that language is incredibly important when we talk about Rivercane. So what are some of the words that you use to describe Rivercane?
Yeah. Choctaw language, like many of the southeastern languages, is a descriptive language, but there are some proper names in there. So Oski is the proper name for Rivercane, but Conshok is the proper name for like a reed cane. So it's switch cane, basically. I think it's Arundinaria tecta. And so I think it's cool that Choctaw people, we realize the differences between these two species. So we name them aptly. When we look at our dictionary, there's all different Choctaw words for processing cane and doing basketry. And, that in itself is an amazing thing to delve into.
I have met you a few times, and I think one of the times that I met you, you said, if we take care of the land will take care of us. And I think you just expanded on that in a profound way. I love it. What is your wish for the plant?
I think my wish, for the plant is really how God intended the plant to flourish. My wish is for it to dominate the ecosystems in the Southeast again. My wish is for it to hold the soil and purify our water. My wish is for it to be healthy enough that it can bountifully offer itself to Choctaw people. And in return, Choctaw people can help it and offer back. I want to see it flourish again because it has so many benefits, not just for Choctaw people, but for all American people. And I think there's so many things that we can learn, not just from the plant, but from, the entire ecosystem that interacts with that plant. but all the animals and the insects that interact with that ecosystem as well. I think there's a wealth of knowledge there, our ancestors knew about. And as we interact with this plant respectfully, that knowledge will wake into us.
I think that Rivercane can do all of those things that you wish for it. And I think that we just need to give it a chance. Ryan Spring, everybody. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really excited about this Rivercane podcast.
Ryan Spring and the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma have been working with the Rivercane Gathering to put together educational webinars for rivercane conservation across the southeastern United States. To learn more, visit the Choctaw Nation's website at choctawnation.com or visit the Rivercane Gathering at usfs.tribalgis.com. We'd like to take a moment to thank the Rivercane Restoration Alliance and the Conserve Research Group for their generous support in making this podcast possible. Thank you.
So we're here with our second guest, Kathy Matthews. Kathy, will you please introduce yourself? It's great to have you here today.
It's great to be here, Adam. I'm Kathy Matthews, as you said. I'm a professor of plant systematics at Western Carolina University and the director of the WCU Herbarium.
Awesome. When did you first learn about Rivercane?
I think it was maybe the same time that you learned about Rivercane, maybe around 2005, when Rob Young created this working group in order to do a Rivercane restoration project for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. He was getting together a bunch of professors and you as a graduate student and some other students to work with the Cherokee on restoring native rivercane for their craft industry.
So you've known about Rivercane for 20 years now.
That's right.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me if a particular plant typically growing on their property is bamboo or rivercane. What should I tell them? What should I tell them if it is rivercane? They call me, they say, is this bamboo or is this rivercane?
I usually tell people if it's really, really tall, then it's non-native bamboo. Rivercane is really bushy looking also, whereas the most common non-native bamboo around here gets to be 20, 25 feet tall, is really tall and spindly and has a yellowish colored stem. And that's called golden bamboo, Philostachys aurea. So rivercane is shorter and bushier looking in general.
Okay, so the overall height and the color of the stem or the culm and maybe the bushiness and the branches.
Right.
Okay, so those are some good features. One of the things that I remember learning about in graduate school was the branch, and the word that was used was for rivercane that the branch was oppressed to the stem. As a biologist, does that have any particular meaning to you, the word oppressed?
Oppressed means like kind of what it sounds like, pressed against. So the branches start out, when they first form, they're closely pressed up against the main stem, and then they diverge higher up.
Okay, so almost parallel?
Yes.
Great. So maybe branching angle might be another way.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of non-native bamboos with branches that come off at a perfect 45-degree angle, or even some of them come off perpendicular. So what are the basic parts of rivercane, Kathy?
So, like any bamboo, and rivercane is a bamboo, by the way, it's a North American bamboo, but the main parts include the above ground stems that we call culms, and these are hollow and woody. There are the foliage leaves on those stems, which are the green leaves that look like typical grass leaves, I guess. And then there's something called culm leaves, which are brownish leaves that are, again, there's the word oppressed, that are oppressed to the stems. And in rivercane, those actually fall off at some point and kind of litter the ground. So a rivercane stand tends to be covered with those deciduous culm leaves. And then there's the below ground portion, which is called the rhizome. And these are also stems. They're just horizontal underground stems that are what enable river cane to spread. So the rhizomes grow horizontally underground and produce new above ground stems or culms at every node. And the nodes, so the stems and the rhizomes, are created by these repeated modules that consist of nodes and internodes. The internodes are the elongated, sort of bare portion of the stem, and the nodes are the portion that they look like there's a line going around the stem, and that's where new branches are produced, and also where the roots are produced. So there are roots produced underground at every node along the rhizome.
A lot of people try to grow river cane, and some of them succeed. What part of the river cane would you need to produce more river cane?
You would need the rhizome, because the rhizome is the part that produces the new above ground stems. So along the rhizome at every node is one or more buds, and the buds are what produce the branches or the above ground vertical stems. The rhizomes also have a terminal growth point by which they elongate horizontally. And so in order to create a whole stand of river cane, you need multiple rhizomes that can spread underground and then produce the above ground stems.
Awesome, thank you. So you've mentioned a few technical words. Well, maybe you didn't, but I know that you know a few technical words. And so we'll do some random word associations, and I want you to explain best you can what some of these words mean as they relate to river cane.
Sure.
So I think we've covered rhizome. When I say the word gregarious, right, is that about the river cane's personality?
Well, it could be, but it generally refers to how they flower. So, like all grasses, river cane is a flowering plant. But unlike most other flowering plants, river cane has a very long term of growth that it has to go through, vegetative growth, before it flowers. And when it decides to flower, a whole lot of stems will flower at once. So that is what is called gregarious flowering, because many stems in one stand will all flower simultaneously or synchronously. And so they all bloom simultaneously, gregariously, and after they flower, they produce the fruit. And the fruit of a grass is called a grain. So if the gregarious flowering event was large, you'll have a really large grain production event after that.
Wow, that sounds delicious.
And it is. I don't know, you've probably tried the grains of river cane, right? They're pretty tasty, actually.
Yeah, kind of nutty.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
It's soft.
Yeah. If you have some, remember to grow them, though. Don't eat them all, please. They're kind of rare. I guess the last question that I ask of guests is, what is your wish for the plant? What do you hope for the future of river cane?
Well, since I've learned about river cane and done some studies on river cane, I love to introduce it to my students in my classes at Western, but it can be really hard to find a decent stand of cane, or cane brake as they used to be called. And you hear about these descriptions from, the 17 and 1800s of swaths of river cane and immense cane brakes along rivers and streams here in Western North Carolina. And those just don't exist anymore, which I think is really sad, because it's a really cool ecosystem and a really cool plant. And so I guess, work that you're doing and other people that are doing to restore some of these cane brakes, at least to some extent, is wonderful. And my wish would be for that to continue, and there to be more of that by private landowners that might have a very narrow tract of cane along a creek on their property. It would be nice if they would let that continue to expand by not mowing up to the edge of it or giving it some space to grow. It does a really great job at maintaining the health of our water, and it's a great wildlife habitat. And it's, like I said, it's just a really cool environment to walk through, right? I know you've walked through some of the larger cane stands that we do still have here. And it kind of transports you to, somewhere in China, maybe, walking through a bamboo forest. It's just a really cool experience that I wish that more people could have here in Western North Carolina.
20 years ago, the Cherokee people made caniacs out of us, so maybe we'll make caniacs out of you. Well, thank you, Kathy, so much for spending some time with us today and teaching us about cane, and we may be talking to you in the future.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Adam.
The Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is actively mapping and caring for rivercane through its Rivercane Stewardship Program. CNO teams are locating cane stands on trust lands and private properties while building community awareness and partnerships along the way. Once a stand is found, they collect GPS data, measure the cane's size and health, and assess its environment using field notes and historical aerial imagery. Rhizomes are examined under a microscope to determine the genus and are then propagated and replanted. When a stand is healthy and of artisan quality, CNO Historic Preservation joins the effort to support sustainable use and future harvest. To learn more, visit the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma website at choctawnation.com or contact Environmental Coordinator Jamie Smith at smithj@choctawnation.com.
Now that you've fallen in love with cane, like everyone else, we hope that you'll stick around for the other episodes in the entire series. In the next episode, we're going to have Roger Kane, who is a wonderful expert on river cane from the United Gadua Band of Cherokee Indians. And we'll hear from Michelle Baumfleck, a U.S. Forest Service expert who's been working with river cane for a long time as well. One thing that I invite you to think about is the perspective of the person speaking. Is the person indigenous? Is the person not? And how has that shaped their understanding and belief system and values in what we're talking about today regarding the environment and other aspects of the plant? Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again.
This podcast was written by Dr. Michael Fedoroff and Dr. Adam Griffith. Hosted by Dr. Adam Griffith. Edited by Ms. Katya Mienkina, Mr. Parker King, and Dr. Michael Fedoroff. Produced by the Conserve Research Group at the University of Alabama Water Institute. And sponsored by the Rivercane Restoration Alliance. Thank you to Mr. Ryan Spring and Ms. Jamie Smith of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, as well as Dr. Kathy Matthews of Western Carolina University. A special thanks to Dr. Michael McCain of Conserve's Future Ecologies program for photos of the germinating seeds. To learn more about how you can support rivercane ecosystems, please contact the Conserve Research Group below or visit our website at conserve-group.org, and stay tuned for our next episode.